Hey guys, welcome to the wiring video on how to wire our flatbeds. Everything in this video we're going to be using the lighting package, which is available to purchase on the website. You can use your own lights, but it's going to be easiest with our components because everything will be the same as I'm explaining it here. So let's get right into this. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to show you is just how to make a basic Y connection. We're going to be making a lot of these in this video, so I just want to show you up close just so we make sure we do all of them correctly. So we're going to be using 2-conductor wire basically as the primary source to wire this bed. So that's what I have here. There's 2 wires in the casing here. Also, some tools you're going to need is a rubber mallet. These are to put the marker lights in. You can just tap them in with a rubber mallet. You need one of those. Some sort of wire stripping and crimping pliers, side dikes, and then also a heat gun. This is to make heat shrink connections. So these are the butt connectors that come in the wiring package. In the lighting package, actually, these are going to be heat shrink waterproof. Very important that you do waterproof connections. If you don't, you're going to be basically fixing a light every 2 months because the connections are going to corrode. So very important that you use heat shrink, some sort of connection. So here's basically what I'm going to call a Y connection. So we'll have 2-conductor wire in a lot of parts of this video that we're going to need to splice into. So continuous piece of 2-conductor wire. To make a Y connection, we're just going to cut it and then kind of strip it back. So I'm using my side dikes to basically cut into the casing but not in the wire. And then I just kind of tear a little bit of the casing back like that. Cut off the excess with my side dikes. So then I'm going to strip all of these about 1/2 inch, 1/4 to 1/2 inch down each wire with my wire strippers. And then we will use a couple of our butt connectors to basically make this Y connection. So I'm going to twist these, pretty standard, and then just kind of. Alright, so this is what we're going to end with. So it was continuous to start, cut it, stripped back the insulation, and then we spliced our light colors together. So this is for if we need to splice in, for example, a marker light, our tail lights. We're going to be doing a lot of this. So this is how it would be done. If you see me doing this in the rest of the video, this is what you're going to do. This is the most important part right here, is to heat shrink it. So I'm going to use my heat gun here, and I'm just going to heat shrink these around the wires, and that's going to waterproof this connection. So obviously I only heat shrunk the side that the wire's already into. We want to wait till we put our other wires in to heat shrink the other side. But this is very important. This is something that's tempting to skip and not take your time on. This is the most important part of the wiring process, is to get a nice tight seal on your waterproof connections around the wire. So it's going to shrink down. You want it tight on there. And this is something you can either take your time on now, which is what you should do, or you can skip it and you can spend 3 times the amount of time fixing your lights down the road because your connections are going to corrode. So take your time here. Make sure all your connections are properly waterproofed. It's worth the time. So this is how we're going to properly connect things. If you see a Y connection is what we'll call it, where we basically Y the 2-conductor wire into a light or whatever else we need to wire it into in the video, this is how it's done. So let's get into actually wiring the bed. Okay, so first step in actually wiring the bed is to just simply pop all of our lights into place and bolt any of the lights that they need to be bolted on. So pop all your tail lights in, all of your marker lights, license plate lights, you can install those. Backup lights on both the tail and the cab lights on the cab rack, you can bolt those up. So the best way to put in the marker lights is to use a rubber mallet and just kind of tap it in. So these are already tapped in, but basically you just insert the wires through the hole, pull on the wires from the backside, and then just kind of lightly tap until the markers pop into place. That's going to be the easiest way to do that, is with a rubber mallet, obviously not a metal hammer. You'll smash the lights. So the only ones you aren't going to pop in are the marker lights on the side of the cab rack. So don't pop those in yet because we have to wire through that hole. We'll get to that next. So get everything popped in, everything installed, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, the next step is going to be after we got all our lights popped in. So as you can see here, I'm up on the front passenger side corner of the bed. This is the tail of my marker light up here on the front corner. The next step is going to be, you're going to do this on both sides, both the driver and passenger side, but I'm just going to show you on one. So we're going to run some of our 2-conductor wire from our lighting package in our lighting hole here, up this tube, and then out the hole where our marker light's going to attach to. So the easiest way to do this is to get actually a piece of welding wire out of your welder, and then basically loop your welding wire around the end of the 2-conductor wire. And then, you know, your welding wire, you probably want to make it at least this long so you can thread it up from the bottom and then grab it out this hole. I usually just get a short piece of welding wire, bend a hook in the end, and then I poke it in there, fish out my welding wire that I poked up the side, and then I have something to pull on that I can basically feed the wire up and out. So once you get it up and out, I like to tape it so it doesn't, I got it electrical taped around here so it doesn't fall back in the hole. Once you have, you know, about 4 inches sticking out the hole and taped, you can cut it off with about 6 or 8 inches of tail. It just needs to be able to reach to this marker light because we're going to Y connect that in. So run that up with your welding wire, both sides, and then you can actually connect and heat shrink your marker in. So on all of the markers, the red wire of our 2-conductor wire is going to connect to the black wire of the marker. The black wire, which is going to be our negative, is going to connect to the white wire. So make sure you get that straight. If you hook it up backwards, it's not going to work. But after you get this piece of wire run, cut off, marker light connected, you can go ahead and insert this excess wire, tap your marker into place, and then we'll move on to the next steps. You need to complete that on both sides. Alright, so I'm going to just get this tapped in. And all the markers have there's a little lettering carved in them that says top. Make sure the top is obviously towards the top. If you get it in there, it's a little crooked, you can just grab it with some pliers and rotate it around a little bit. I'll just tap it in like so, both sides, and we'll move on to the next thing. Next step in the process is going to be to run the wire and connections for our cab LED lights. So this is obviously the back side of the bed. So what we need to do is the same way that we ran the wires up the tube for our marker lights on the headache rack, we also need to run, so this here is the driver's side, run wire up the tube and then come out here for a Y connection to this light, and then through the tube this way and come down for an N connection to this light. So same deal, use your welding wire to fish it up to the hole. You might fish it up to this hole first, pull out your wire, and then fish it from there out this hole and then pull the wire out there. You're going to want to pull, so there's a loop here and then, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 inches of tail here. Once you do that, you can just connect these to the end. These lights, it's just going to be red to red, black to black, pretty simple. Make sure you get a heat connection. This one's going to be a Y connection, so we have the continuous piece of wire we cut, wire those 2 light colored wires together from the 2-conductor, connect in our red to red and black to black for the LED. And then when you run it down here, you probably want about a 18-inch tail that we're going to splice into and run to the cab, because these lights are going to be on a cab switch once we install it. So that's the next step. Go ahead and get that done. Okay, quick explanation of the 18-inch tail I was talking about. So this is the short tail. This is from our marker light on the headache rack that we ran in the first step. This is the tail of my actual marker light. This is the tail, the 18-inch tail for our cab LED lights up on the headache rack. So what's going to happen here is you can just ground this straight to your flatbed. So I just got a self-tapping screw with a little eyelet connection that I've hooked the black wire and just drilled it in and connected it to the bed. That way we only have to run the hot wire up to the cab into the cab switch. So you can do a similar connection. If you want to ground it up on the battery, you can do that too. This is just a little bit easier. So that's what this wire needs to look like for the headache rack cab lights. Okay, so the next step is we're going to do some pre-wiring on our actual tail lights before we move on to the next step. So I have everything connected like it should be here. I'm just going to quickly explain it. So obviously I'm on the tail lights of the bed. This is the inside of the bed here. So first thing you're going to need to do is pop in these pigtails to the light. They're just 3 prongs that you pop right in to both of those. Each light's going to have 3 wires. The white wire is going to be your ground wire. The red wire is going to be your blinker and brakes. So in this case, this is going to be the passenger side blinker and brake wire. And then the black is going to be your tail lights or running lights. So basically, when your tail lights are on, it's going to power this wire. So the other thing I have here that you might be confused about is these orange things. and these come in the lighting package, are resistors. So I got 2 of them zip tied together, put in my little wiring hanger cradle, and then zip tied to that to keep them nice and secure there. What these are for is these slow your blinkers down to factory speed. So when you hook a lower voltage lights into your factory lights, it's going to blink very fast because your system thinks your light is out. This adds a little more resistance to the circuit so that your blinkers basically blink at factory speed. So that's what these are for. We always just put 2 of them in here. The only pickups that don't really need resistors are cab and chassis. In most cases, you're going to need the resistors. So here's what you need to do to basically pre-wire these. So this is going to be my cluster 1 here. So I got the 2 red wires from each tail light, and also these other 2 red wires are from my resistors. So one side of the resistor needs to be hooked to the hot wire of your blinkers, which in this case is the red wires. The other side is going to be hooked to the ground, which I'll get to next. So this is your first connection: 2 red wires from the lights, 2 red wires from the resistors. Secondly, I've just wired my 2 tail lights together, so my 2 black wires into the one side of this connection. This is so I only have to make 1 connection to the tail lights. Third one is going to be the ground, which is going to have my 2 white wires from my lights. So these are the ground wires from your lights, and then the other 2 red wires from the resistors. That's how the resistors ground. So you need to basically have both sides of your tail lights looking like this to move on to the next step. The reverse lights down here, we're just going to leave these till we install them, because on your pickup, it's going to have basically stock wiring of both a ground and a hot wire that we can just splice in directly to that same circuit on the pickup. So we don't need to do anything on these until install. So get everything looking like this on both sides, and we'll move on to the next thing. All right, so I'm on the center of the bed. This is basically the middle of the tail on the backside here. These are the 3 marker lights that you'll see there. This is pretty simple. You just need to wire the 3 black wires together into one side of a butt connector and the 3 white wires together into one side of a butt connector, and then we'll just hook this to basically our perimeter wiring, which I'll go over next, that hooks these to the running lights. So just get them looking like this to move on to the next step. These are our license plate lights. Don't do anything with these as of yet. We'll go over that once we start the perimeter wiring. Next, we're going to do perimeter wiring, which, big picture, what this does is we run 2 conductor wire around the perimeter of the bed, and it's going to connect the circuit for all of our running lights. So all of our marker lights, our tail lights, our license plate lights, they're all going to be connected on one circuit in this perimeter wiring. So I'm going to do it and then come back and we'll explain it so you can also complete it. Okay, so I got the perimeter wiring complete. I'm just going to do a walk around and explain what I did, and then you guys can do the same thing. So I'm going to start up here, front driver's side corner of the bed. So this was our short wire from our cab light marker that we ran at the beginning of this video. So now I basically connected the first marker light up here to our short wire, and then I started the perimeter wire here. So on all these markers, the white wire of the marker is going to connect to the black wire of the perimeter wire. So just remember it this way: snow is white, which is on the ground. That's how you remember that the white wire connects to your ground, which on the 2 conductor is going to be the black wire, and then the black wire from your marker light will connect to the red wires of your perimeter wiring. So the best way to do this is to just start right here at this corner, make your connection, then run your wire through your hangers to your next connection, wired in this marker light the same way, obviously heat shrinking everything as we go. Ran it down here through these wiring hooks, hooked it to this back marker here, same way as the first 2. Then when we get to the tail lights, and leave yourself a little extra slack when you get here, obviously you're going to be running the wire as you go. The red wire we wide and connected to the black wires of the tail lights, because the black wires of the tail lights are the running lights, and this whole perimeter wire is to fire all of our running lights. So the red wires of the 2 conductor wire go to the black wires of the tail lights. The black wires of the perimeter wire go to the white wires and the 2 resistor wires of the tail lights. So that's what the connection should look like there. Perimeter wire here. Red wires connected to black on the tail lights. the black perimeter wires connected to the white wires plus your 2 resistor wires. These are the blinker and brake light wires. We're going to hook these in to the pickup directly on install, so that we don't need to do anything with this right now. Next, I just made a wide junction for where we're going to actually connect our pickup running light, hot, and ground in. So this is basically our power point. We're going to put the power in here. It's going to fire this whole circuit. All of the running lights will come on when we put power into here. So just leave this open to receive the power from the pickup. Next, I wide the perimeter wire into the 3 marker light wires, and on the same side I basically connected the red and black wires to their light colored perimeter wires, because these license plate lights are also part of the running lights. When the running lights are on, we want these to be on, so I just wired them in here. So I got the marker lights coming in this way, my perimeter wires, and the light colored license plate lights coming in from the other direction. If this is too hard for you, you can just do the perimeter lights straight into the markers, make another junction to hook in these 2, but in this case I just did all of them in one, keeps it cleaner. Then we're going to get over here to the other side. Everything here is the same, we just don't have the junction for where we're going to plug in the pickup power for the running lights, because we only need one of those, so we're going to do that over there. So same deal here, the black wires of the perimeter wire go to the white wires and 2 resistor wires of the tail lights. The red wires of the perimeter wire hook to the black wires of the tail lights. So same as the other side. This one, same deal. We're going to hook it straight to our pickup lights that power the brakes and turn signals, so we don't need to do anything with this here. And then just continue around. I ran the perimeter wire over here, connected to the first marker through the wiring hangers, the middle marker here, and then finally up to the front passenger marker here, and then this runs up to the cab rack marker. So in other words, this whole thing should be a continuous circuit. We're going to plug it in back there on our power junction point from the pickup, and it's going to fire up all of these lights. So that's what you should have the circuit looking like. Next, I'll show you how to test it. Alright, so after you got the perimeter wire ran and all the connections made, you can just very simply test this. So these in my hand here are just 2 jumper wires. I have these connected to a battery, just a standalone car battery. I'm just going to pretend these are the tail light and ground wire coming from my pickup, and I'm just going to plug them in here, and we're basically going to test if everything is working. So I got them plugged in, and it appears all of my lights are working. So every single marker light should be on when you connect it to power. Your tail light portion of your tail lights should be on. Your license plate light should be on. Obviously these blinkers, everything should be on. If there's not, if nothing is on, you know, your battery might have power, might not have power. You might have hooked these up backwards. If there's a break in the circuit, i.e. everything works all the way around and then it stops working in a certain marker and everything past that doesn't work, that's where your error is, where that last marker is that works between there and the one that doesn't. That's where the error is going to be. So that's how you test it. If you plug it in, all this works. That means when we plug it into the pickup, all of our running lights are going to work. So that's how you test the circuit, very simply. Last thing we're going to do is we're just going to basically we're going to tape and then zip tie everything so it's nice and tight and snug and looks nice. So important thing to note here, we always want casing contacting on the bed, because after 1,000,000 miles of vibration, you want this casing to protect from wear. If it's just on the bare wires, that's a lot less protection than if there's the casing. So basically what we're going to do is everywhere where we've stripped back the casing to make a connection, we're going to tape everything up so that all that's showing is cased wire. We don't want any bare wires exposed. After we do that, we're just going to zip tie everything into place. So all those wiring hangers that we welded on, you can zip tie to all of those. You pretty much want to zip tie to every single one of them. Keeps everything nice and tight so it doesn't come loose as it's driving the next 1,000,000 miles down the road. So I'm going to tape everything up, and then we'll just do another walk around and kind of show you what it should look like. Okay, so we got everything wired up, taped up, and zip tied. I'm just going to go kind of around and show you how everything should be taped up and zip tied. So all of the marker lights, this is the center marker light on the driver's side, there shouldn't be any exposed wires. And when I say exposed, I'm not talking about bare copper. I'm talking about you can see the black or the red out of the perimeter wire. You got to tape all that up because we want a layer of protection between that and the wiring hanger, so that when we drive down the road the next million miles, it doesn't wear through that thin little skin on the individual wire. So tape everything up like this, zip tie it nice and secure. Done that pretty much all the way around the bed. Anywhere there's a connection, I've taped it up and zip tied it. It needs to be over the top of either the casing around the wire or around tape. So here, taped up everything in terms of the running light connections, and then zip tied it down here. This connection here I have not taped up yet. This is going to be our junction point for our tail lights. So the hot wire and the ground from our actual pickup are going to come in here. That's going to fire up all of our running lights. This is the blinker and brake wire. We'll also hook this directly to the pickup, so you can leave this as is. This is going to get connected to the pickup. Once we do that, we'll tape these up. But for now, we're good. Same deal here. I've taped it up, zip tied it in the center here. And then same deal over here as well. Obviously, we got our passenger side blinker and brake light that will hook directly to the pickup as well here. Everything else taped up, zip tied. All of the markers are taped up and zip tied as well. Don't cut corners on this. I know it's tempting to kind of skip the step of meticulously taping it up and zip tying it, but it's one of those things that's going to pay off in the long term because you're not going to wear through the thin casing on the individual wires. This is going to last for hundreds of thousands of miles if you do this correctly. So take your time here, make sure everything's taped up. Everything else we'll take care of on install. We'll hook up all of these connections. That'll be explained in the install video. So we're done wiring for this. Everything else is going to be taken care of on install, which is the next step.